Hi, my name is Mike Groom and welcome to EmpowerTV. I'm a pastor at Adelaide Christian Centre. It's great that you can join us today. In this episode, I want to talk about supporting relationships. Like it or not, we need other people in our lives. When I was a teenager, I didn't necessarily like people, so therefore I was a bit of a loner and I enjoyed my own company. In fact, I didn't really need to be with other people, but as I grew older, I realised that I needed people around about me. Now, I'm a pastor of a church where it's all about people. God has a sense of humour. And so in a while, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about this a little bit more. On this topic, like it or not, we need each other.
Everyone needs compassion, love that's never failing. Let mercy fall on me. Everyone needs forgiveness, the kindness of the Savior, the hope of a nation. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save forever. Author of salvation, He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Take me as you find me, all my fears and failures. Fill my life again. Give my life to follow everything I believe in. Now I surrender. He is mighty to save forever.
I hope you enjoyed that song. And this morning, as I've already said in the introduction, I want to talk about, like it or not, we need each other, with the emphasis of supporting relationships. We all need to have supporting relationships in our life. It takes a deliberate choice and a deliberate decision to create authentic and close relationships. We need to be intentional about forming close relationships with other people. Like it or not, we need other people in our lives. We may not necessarily like those people in all that they do, but we need the support of other people. We so desperately do. And in the society that we live in at this time, it is a very lonely society with all the isolation and everything around about us because of COVID-19. The fact is, we starve for people's attention. We starve for people's company. We need people around about us. So like it or not, we need one another. And this is very true in regards to how God has formed us. God has created us to be in relationship, not only with Him, but also with other people in our life as well. In fact, the Bible reinforces the idea of creating authentic and supporting relationships. In fact, the Bible declares that this is a spiritual discipline. Now, if you wanted to get fit physically, you would go through various disciplines of exercise so that your body would respond to those exercises and you would be better for it. Fellowship is a Christian word that we use inside the church, but we can also use authentic supporting relationships. And this is what a vibrant, godly church offers to those that are in need to answer their loneliness. You see, God designed us to be in fellowship or to be in community. We need this in our life, and it's a discipline. It's an intentional decision that we have to make every time we are with people to enjoy them. It takes discipline or delayed gratification. It takes work. It's not easy if you generally don't like people or being around people. In fact, like me, if you were a loner and you enjoyed your own company, it takes effort to spend time with people. And this is what the Bible talks about, it being a discipline. We have to work at it. It's intentional. We have to be decisive in this, and we'll be better off for it. Now, there's a Bible verse here in Hebrews chapter 10, verses 23 to 25. It says, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope that we profess. For He who promised is faithful," this being Christ. "And let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up of meeting together." Now, this phrase here of not forgetting to meet together, and meeting up together, in the original language in the Greek that this Bible verse was written in, it's translated in English so that we can understand it if you don't speak Greek. But the original meaning here was about abandonment, meaning to abandon or to consciously decide not to spend time with people. Now, in this season that we're in, if you belong to a local church, no doubt they're doing videoing and live streaming and recording their church services for you to watch in the comfort of your home on a Sunday morning or whenever that may be. Now, this is good because of the season that we're in, but it should never be a substitute for us not coming together and meeting together. So this is for you if you're a churchgoer. I encourage you that once you're able to meet again in the life of your church, as we would term to be in fellowship or to gather together, don't abandon meeting together. Don't use live streaming or church services on the other side of the world or the other side of the street or wherever it may be to be a substitute, to be a regular and a staunch supporter of your local church, because they need you just as you need them. And that's a challenge for us churchgoers, that our local church becomes our local church. And we should only have one local church. We should we should be faithful to our local church where God has put us in to be a part of that family. Too many people use church services on TV and say they belong to this ministry or that ministry or this church, or I go to this church and I also go to this church. It doesn't work. God has called us to be a part of membership in one local church so that we can grow, so that we can give, so that we can serve, and we can be there together and reap the benefits of one authentic community. Yes, we can fellowship with other brothers and sisters with Christ, and you know what I mean if you're a churchgoer. But it's vitally important that we commit ourselves and put our roots down deep into our local church so that we can grow and nurture and to be a blessing and to be blessed by those around about us. And so it says here, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encourage one another. And all the more as you see the day approaching. The day approaching is simply, as Christians, we believe that not only did Jesus die, but He rose again back to life, and one day He's going to return to this earth. How that happens and when that happens, that's up to Him. We don't need to necessarily worry about that because the Bible says we have to be ready and to be ready for His coming. So we need to occupy and do everything that we can. How He comes and when He chooses to come, that's up to Him. But we do know, and the fact is, as the Bible declares, one day He will return. Verse 23, it says, let us hold unswervingly. Now this is a great example of driving a car. I remember when I was about 18 or 19, I was driving after work one day and I was really tired. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun was out, it was in my face. I started quite early that morning and I was driving in a neighbourhood street. I lived on the Gold Coast in Queensland at the time. And I remember it was a big sweeping bend going to the right, going uphill. And I fell asleep. And just for a millisecond, I fell asleep and I woke up and I saw some people walking on the footpath and I was headed straight for them. And I swerved very quickly. Obviously, I missed them, and more obviously, I was wide awake after that. In fact, I was a little bit trembling because of what could have happened because I fell asleep. You see, life has a habit of causing us to swerve off course. Life has the tendency to throw circumstances at us that will cause us to swerve off course. And this happens so much in our life through various things that happen to us. It could be through a loss of job, a broken relationship. It could be through grief of the sad passing of a loved one. Whatever it may be. It may be that our dog didn't lick us on the face and when we were greeted. I don't know. But the reality is there's often times in our life where we're thrown off course and we get into a place of feeling in disarray and confused and not really knowing what to do because we're off the path where we were headed originally. We can swerve too far to the left or swerve too far to the right through our own sin and dopey, stupid decisions that we make. No one else makes for us, but the ones that we make for ourselves can cause us to swerve off course. Wrong attitudes, sickness, and these areas that we often experience, a loss of job, a lack of finances, whatever it may be, these things can swerve us off course. Somehow we've got to get back on track. And this is important because this is where supporting relationships helps us get back on course. The most experienced Christian, doesn't matter how long you've been a Christ follower. I've been following Christ now as a born-again, Spirit-filled believer since 1982. I was 14 years of age. You do the maths. And I've never looked back. It doesn't matter how long you've been a Christian, 50, 60 years or whatever. You see, we can all swerve off course if we isolate ourselves. You see, life plays no favourites. Doesn't matter if you're a believer or a non-believer. The reality is good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. I've got no idea why and why that has to be, but I know this. Life plays no favourites. And that's something that we have to face. Here in verse 23 from the Passion Translation, it says this: we must cling tightly to the hope that lives within us, knowing that God always keeps His promises. It's a great scripture. Why? Because the key to not swerving off course, if you're a Christ follower, is to trust that Jesus will help guide and keep us on track. He will help us from drifting off course. There's barriers or guardrails on the left or to the right of our life. And when we go into that area of danger, we ricochet off that barrier and we come back on course. You see, Jesus could very well use the people around about you, and in particular in a local church, where He will use them to guide you and to speak the truth in love. That when we're nearing danger, they can comfort us. They can speak to us. And it will help ricochet us back onto the right path and not stray or swerve completely off course. And then it says, let us consider in verse 24 how we may spur or to provoke one another on. Now, I love cowboy movies. My children cringe when I watch movies on John Wayne. I love John Wayne. And maybe you do as well. Maybe you're not even old enough to know who he is, but I love John Wayne movies. And I love cowboy movies. And you know, a cowboy on a horse, they have spurs out the back of their boots. And spurs were used to encourage or to prod the horse along. It was a motivational technique. Now, they could be used wrongly and excessively. We understand that. But generally, we are encouraged to prod one another on. We are encouraged here in Hebrews, tells us, to spur one another on. Just as a cowboy would spur the horse to motivate it forward, we are there to encourage and to prod one another on forward to grow in our relationship with Jesus. You see, being a Christ follower is not being a lone ranger. We need people around about us. We need other people to spur us on to grow in our relationship with Jesus. It says to spur one another on towards what? Love and good deeds. Now, the Passion Translation says this, to motivate them towards acts of compassion, doing beautiful works as expressions of love. It explains that really good. We are to spur one another on to do good, to help others, be there for others. You see, intentional community is riding together, spurring one another on to do good for the benefit of others. If you don't get anything of what I'm sharing in this episode today, at least get this, what is on the screen. God never designed you, and He never designed me to live in isolation, but to live in community. What better place to find an authentic, supporting community than a local church? You may not be currently a churchgoer, and I encourage you to think about these next thoughts that I'm about to express with you. If you are a churchgoer, can I encourage you to be committed to that church? As I've already said, there's no better place that I know than an authentic, supporting community than within a local church. In fact, our local church have small groups. We call them connect groups. They're about 8 to 15 people, and we meet regularly on a Wednesday night. At the moment, we're doing it through Zoom. There's nothing better than being together, though. Not on a screen, but in a room. You see, life is best done in circles and not rows. Rows is when we come together on a Sunday and we do church together. But circles is when we come together in a small group where we can be more intimate, we can open up more. There's a sense of trust, vulnerability. And this is where we can grow and support one another in our day-to-day lives. And this is so vitally important. I love our small connect group, I really do. I love meeting with them. But I can't wait to get back together in a room rather than on a screen. You see, we have a much better chance to stay on track when life throws us a curveball, when we are in a life-changing or a life-giving circle of friends that care for us. And this is why, as a Christ follower, we need to make a firm decision to put our roots down into a church family. Living in isolation is a recipe for swerving off course. You see, mutual encouragement is one way how Jesus designed us to grow. Like it or not, we need each other. In verse 25 here in Hebrews, it says this, "This is not the time to pull away and neglect meeting together, as some have formed the habit of doing, because we need each other. In fact, we should come together even more frequently, eager to encourage and to urge each other onward as we anticipate the day approaching. Intentional community is deciding to put down roots, and in particular, into a local church. We're going to come back after this song.
I will bless the Lord forever, and I will trust Him at all times. He has delivered me from all fear, and He has set my feet upon a rock, and I will not be moved, and I'll say, "You're the Lord, you are my shield, my strength, my portion, deliverer, my shelter, strong tower, my very present help in time of need."
As I said before that song, intentional community is deciding to put down roots. We need to be connected into an authentic community for support to withstand the complexities and the pressures that life presents us. We don't have to go looking for trouble. Trouble has a handy knack of finding us. There's a great Bible verse in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 12. It says, "A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken." A great verse talking about being interconnected and supporting one another. A great image of a rope where three strands can come together, very hard to break because they're tied, intertwined together, supporting each other. If we don't have supporting relationships, like a church community or a church family, then when trouble comes, we can become vulnerable and, sadly, potentially drift away in our own loneliness and feel rejected, despondent, and we need others to spur us on, to drift away from those who are there for us, to support us, to care for us, to spur us on to good deeds. Maybe we lose our intimacy with God. I don't know, but I've seen this happen so many times. In particular, when people have a relationship problem in a church, or they don't like the carpet or the chairs, the colour of the toilets, or whatever the case may be. I've seen people leave church families for minor reasons. They drift away. And then I can join the dots, sadly for many, of where they're ended up because of that decision of choosing to withdraw themselves from an authentic supporting community. You see, genuine loving relationships provide the care and the support we all need to stay on course. So here's a question as I finish off today. Would you consider committing to put down your spiritual roots into a church family by attending that church family regularly, and also by beginning to serve in one of the various ministry expressions that church may have? There's no better way to serve God than by serving others through the local church initiatives. And lastly, to get involved in a small group. A small, authentic group of friends that can be there to support you. Like it or not, we need each other. And I hope this has been an encouragement to you today. God bless you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining with us today. We trust that you enjoyed and was uplifted by the songs and message. Please contact for information or for a prayer request by visiting our webpage.